Invincible continues to be my favorite show on television right now, and my god, am I obsessed with this show, craving it each and every week. I'm just sitting there like, please don't end, please, damn it ended, and then you gotta wait till the next week. This episode 6 is titled You Look Kinda Dead, and it very much fits, especially because it's the epilogue after last week's brutal massacre that happened, and definitely opening up to so many doors. Adding in a little bit of a thing that I like to really pressure out there is that this is a show that everything matters. Now, do you understand though, this will be a non-spoiler and a spoiler review. Amazon Prime was very nice to send me the episode early, so they did ask me to not reveal certain things in here, but there are other things that I can talk about around there. But the best thing about this, guys, is if you guys want to talk full spoilers or just anything you want to discuss down below in the comment section, feel free to do so, as well as hitting that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking Invincible every single week, or in general, if you're just a geek like me, this is the channel for you guys. So overall, this episode of Invincible was great. It again builds off last week's. I still think last week's is probably my favorite episode, but even with that said, there's so much that's coming up within the show. We got 2 episodes left to the 7, 8, so then we get the finale, and I am so invested in this. So, of course, kind of jumping into this, it kind of opens up. You get to see this drunk guy, he's screwing around, and someone kidnaps him. Who is it? Turns him into a fucking robot, and it goes insane from there. The big thing about this whole entire show and the way that I kind of do recaps is just the main moments that really stuck out to me for the most. Let's start with the kind of the side characters. We get a little bit more of Eve, seeing that she wants to, she doesn't care about college. She doesn't care about what she's doing. She wants to be the hero that saves people. She can stop people from starving. She can help people. She can grow crops. She can do so much for the environment, and that's what she wants to do. And she sets out there, and we see her shitty family being pieces of shit parents who don't want to support her. For the most part, I love what Eve's doing, and I think she's such an interesting character in the way that she really much is a dynamic, and her relationship with, of course, Mark is so important as well, especially with their friendship. Even adding in there, though, the big thing I want to kind of get out of the way is probably the biggest thing of the episode. Well, there's quite a few big things in this episode, but the biggest thing is Debbie Grayson, Mark's mom, finds out some revelations in here that happen to do with Omni-Man, and just the conversation that she has with Art, the guy who creates all the suits, and just kind of like the lingering ambience and the atmosphere in those moments is just very sucked out of the air in those singular moments. And again, for an animated show to get me this invested, to get this emotionally enwrapped, it is quite awesome. And I'm absolutely just in love with what this show is doing. And in the way that they brought those sequences and those moments to life was some of the best moments. And the way that that whole entire thread throughout this entire episode really much continued. One of the big things that we do end up seeing in here is, Art and Omni-Man having a drink, and we don't know where that's going to lead to. And then, of course, at the very end of the episode, Omni-Man and Debbie's conversation. Again, very intense. How is that going to end up going into? All I know is I hope we get every season of this show, and I hope it just continues to roll down from there, because it's seriously one of the best things that I've ever been engaged with when it comes to an animated show. And of course, going back to last week's episode where we saw many of our heroes fall, some might recover, some might not. That is the big lingering question, but we do see that Mark ends up recovering. He was out for 5 to 6 days. His first worry is Amber. I mean, as a teenage kid, you're gonna feel that same way. And this is why Mark is one of the most relatable characters, and in a sense, he's me. I love what Steven Yeun is doing with the voice of him, but he's bringing this character to life, and I just feel so relatable to Mark, because everything he's feeling, that is how I'm feeling. And especially since the fact that he still has not told Amber, and they get in a huge argument towards the end of this episode, and now they're not even together, it just adds this whole torture of how he wants to be a kid, but he also doesn't want to be a hero. And where Eve, her parents say, this was the worst day for me, because I never wanted my kid to have powers. The thing with this is now we look at Mark, and I wonder if that's kind of the same thing. It's a blessing and a curse for him. He maybe is regretting wanting to get superpowers, where in the first episode we saw him wanting them so bad, and now he's seeing the results of that, and how he is more than just this typical teenager now. And I think, again, I'm still clamoring for him to just tell Amber. I haven't read the comics. I'm sure in the comics there's somewhere where he has to fucking tell her, but that's a big thing to talk about later. I'm hoping by the end of the season she finds out, because it would make total sense. It's Amber, I'm invincible. Get over it. I saved his life. Let's just go over that. Because the whole thing is they're walking around, they're having this great thing. And I love seeing just them bonding. I think Steven Yeun and Zazie Beetz do a great job with their characters and bringing that relationship to life. But even with that said, we're seeing all these nice moments. We're seeing, these cute moments, but of course, something has to happen. And like we saw in the beginning of this episode with the robot, we saw that missing poster and we knew exactly what's going to happen. It was too good to be true. Robot bursts from the ground. Everyone's scrambling for their lives. And in a sense, in Amber's eyes, she was the hero in this whole entire situation. Same with his friend Will. But of course, Will and all of them are fighting. And Mark just disappears, but he runs in as Invincible shows up, stops the robot. And Will gets a little bit of a coincidence like, is that my friend? And it adds for a really interesting dynamic to see, because in a sense, Mark hasn't told anyone his secret identity, which for the most part, pretty good for a superhero. Usually most of the time when we see these stories, someone finds out like that. And I think for me, this is something that's really interesting to see the dynamic. And again, please tell Amber. I don't know if I'm in the minority on that, but we need you to tell Amber, dude. Like, just let's get this over with. But straight up off the bat, that fight between him and the robot guy was awesome. And just the way that the animation swells, him getting the shit kicked out of him, him beating his ass, and then getting the helmet knocked off of him looking in the water, seeing himself, and just killing himself. Like, that's how the fight ends. The brutality just continues inside of there. And the thing that, again, something that we need to pay attention to is that logo. It keeps getting more bloody each and every episode. And where is Invincible? How bloody is it going to be by the end? I'm assuming pretty bloody. And I actually feel like this is all leading up to a giant cliffhanger. That's going to be us salivating for an entire year, maybe 2 years, until the next season. We're just going to be like sitting there clamoring for the next thing. And I hope to God it comes like that, because I cannot wait that long. But of course, the whole entire thing ends up going to here. Amber decides to go to a house party where she meets this guy named Kyle. Mark wants to go after her. Will's boyfriend ends up disappearing, and he wants Mark to come help him, but he can't. And, of course, all that sorts of thing. He goes to the party, sees her and Kyle kind of bonding, but then he gets a call from his friend saying, I need your help. Heads down, goes to the sewer. Another great action set piece opens up. We find out who's been doing this. Pretty obvious throughout the entire episode, like right when it happened. I was like, okay, yeah, we know who this was. And it ends up just insanity ensues. Again, another great action set piece. The thing is, we see how upset Amber is. We see that she really likes Mark. And we see how much this is really harming her in general. But so many different avenues kind of just go into here. And by the end of this episode, we see Mark, he saved the day. But what did it cost him? He's healing up and he's talking to the government official guy who I just can't remember off the top of my head what his name is. But there's some interesting things with him. Because he knows that Omni-Man did it. Like, he knows. But how do we prove it? And how do we defend ourselves with that? And an interesting thing here is seeing the robots and seeing how they gave Mark a tough time. And we see him taking him into custody. So what are they going to do? Create more of those guys? Create, in a sense, an army that could maybe fight Omni-Man? That's like my prediction. It seems like that's what they are doing. And seeing where Mark is coming into play now is just really interesting to see. Because they want to see what Mark's strength is. They want to keep him alive. And, the entire episode ends with them kind of going through, going back to the room, just chilling, looking in on Amber, and going to sleep. And we see Amber still awake. And for me, I'm predicting this. I think next week's episode, I think he tells her. I think next week or episode 8, he tells her. One of the two, I think she finds out by the end of the season. I'm going to go with that. I feel like I'm right. Maybe I'm not. We're definitely going to find out very soon, guys. Make sure also, if you guys didn't get to stay tuned after the episode, because there is an interesting post-credit scene that happens to do with the Mahler twins, which, again, interesting characters that we're still trying to figure out. What is Robot doing with them? What is he not? What are they building? It's going to be interesting. And again, everything ties in and everything is making sense in some way, shape, or form. I'm absolutely loving Invincible, and I'm sure many of you guys are as well. So thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on your way out so we can keep talking Invincible every single week. And make sure to comment down below your guys' thoughts overall. My name is Zach. Thank you once again. And of course, until next time, stay classy.